when Lita was 89 years old, Miriam and I spent an incredible afternoon with her one day with the video camera when she shared lots of memories and great stories. And one of those stories was a family classic, the story of their engagement. And Lita set the scene. So her family had a home in Candlewood Lake. And she said that she invited Harold to come with to the home in Candlewood Lake. And by the lake, there was this beautiful willow tree and a bench there wrapped all, you guys maybe know, the bench wrapped all the way around the willow tree. And she sat with Harold on the bench and looked into his beautiful blue eyes and said, "All right, I will keep a kosher home." So listening to this, and at this point, you know that feeling you get when you're, watching a TV show and an episode ends at a really riveting moment. You look for the remote control because you want to skip intro and hear what happens next. So I'm waiting to hear what happens next, and there's just this persistent pause. And I was waiting for Lita to continue, and that was it. The story was over. That was the end of the story. Because at that moment, Harold and Lita knew that they were going to get married. So Lita did add some context. She explained that growing up, her family's not observant. She explained that on the high holidays, she and her sister, would get in the car with their father and go to the Museum of Modern Art while all the other Jews kind of walked by and went to synagogue. And though Lita agreed to keep a kosher home for Harold, she really evolved, and Judaism became a part of her life no less than it was for him. But Lita did describe very aptly the differences in kind of what their Judaism meant for each of them. And Lita recollected that Harold would say that he wasn't sure there is a God, but he knew that God watched over him. And as Miriam described, every Shabbat, Harold was Gabbai Sheni in the very Catholic position. And later in years when LPGC became smaller, they had their twice a week morning minyan. And he would never miss a minyan. He would be there, twice a week, every week. And the fact that he was the only one who would attend never deterred him. He continued to go. And Harold was known to say, and again, I think the family said this, he would say that God is my friend. And he would go, it was just a pleasure for him, in the morning to go to Lincoln Park Jewish Center, have some one-on-one time with his friend God. And, that was, really, I think, something that he really enjoyed, a real pleasure for him. And Lita observed, she said, "I wish I had a spiritual soul the way Harold did, but I don't." And what Lita did have, as Miriam was describing, her Judaism really focused on family, community, both Jewish and non-Jewish, in the Lincoln Park Jewish Center. She'd frequently host Shabbat dinners for hundreds of family members, back-to-back seders. And when it came to LPJC, she would, as Miriam described, just do all those things, and then spend time thinking about, well, what else can I do for the shul? What more can I do? Maybe it reminds me of somebody. I don't mention any names. So within the Torah, we find the words which I think I and probably all of you knew even years before I knew it was part of the Torah. That's the Shema and the Ve'ahavta. I think everyone knows it, but it's page 112 of the Siddur. Right, verse 4 is the Shema. And then, right, verse 5 is the Ve'ahavta. Right, so it's Ve'ahavta et Adonai Elohecha b'chol levacha b'chol nafshecha b'chol me'odecha. You shall love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, and with all your might. And I've had days when manifesting my love of Judaism and of God, b'chol nafshecha, with all my soul, comes naturally and easily. Today's definitely one of those days. Those are my good Harold days. And I've had my good Lita days when b'chol me'odecha comes naturally, feeling strong in terms of my actions, support of my Jewish life. But perhaps like some of you, I've had days when neither b'chol nafshecha nor b'chol me'odecha come easily. when my soul and my might are both not at their best. As we read further, v'ahavta, it's v'hayu hadvarim ha'ela asher anochi mitzavecha hayom al levavecha. Right? These words should be on our hearts. Right? The verse before we were saying, b'chol levavcha, again, the repetition of the importance of the heart. And then, v'shinatam levanecha, teach them to your children. V'dibar tabam, speak to them. And when should we do that? When should we be focused on these things? V'shivta ha'bevitecha, when we're in our house. V'lachtacha b'derech, when we're not in our house. V'shavtacha, when we lay down. V'kumecha, when we get up. So I'm not a Torah scholar, but it seems to me that's a really nice literary way of saying all the time. Yet, what about those days when we're just not feeling it? Maybe our souls are feeling depleted, we're feeling weak, not strong. The nafshecha and the meodecha just aren't there. I'm going to digress for a moment with a fun fact from my day job. So do you know what happens biologically on those days when our souls and our strength are feeling diminished, days we don't feel like engaging or doing much of anything? On those days when we got nothing in our spiritual or physical tank, our hearts keep beating just like any other day. Brought an expert in the back who can vouch for that. And this is true, right? Whether we're home, not home, lying down, getting up, our hearts don't miss a beat. It sustains us, keeps us alive and ready for whatever the next moment may bring. And I suspect that Harold and Lita, like all of us, had days when their souls and their strength were not at their best. Yet they lived their lives with constant appreciation and gratitude. There was never a moment, not even a heartbeat, when they did not love each other, their family, their community, the Lincoln Park Jewish Center, and their personal relationship with God, with all their heart. And I was excited when David offered me the opportunity to read from this Torah today, which we'll be doing in a little bit. And I don't know where David is, but there you are. I was thinking that you were very purposeful in the verses that you chose for me. Realizing I hadn't read in a long time, it was a 3-verse aliyah, and I think you felt like the shortest aliyah would probably be a good choice for me, which was right on target. But it was really something as I took a look at that aliyah. It's on page 1166 if you have. So it's talking, right? So we're just hearing about from God about the covenant. So verse 13 says, "V'lo idchem l'datchem anochi korei et habrit hazot." This is, from God. Not with you alone do I make this covenant. So again, not a big Torah scholar, but wasn't aware of any third party, to the covenant between God and the Jewish people. So, who else is being referred to here? And just in the following verse. Ki et asher yeshno po imanu omed hayom lifnei Adonai Eloheinu, because it's those of you who are standing here, with us this day. And who's the other party referred to in the previous verse? Who's part of the covenant? Einenu po imanu asher einenu po imanu hayom. Those who are not with us here this day. So who's that referring to? Here in the footnote, it refers to, reminds us that that's talking about future generations. So when it's the relationship with those who are standing, those who are not standing here, being the future generations, on one hand, I think this reinforces what we were talking about before with the Shema, V'shinatam levanecha, teach them to your children, because we don't do that, then the future generations won't be present to sustain the relationship when their time comes. But as I thought more about these verses, it actually kind of blew my spiritual mind a little bit. Because, I was thought back and I thought, I pictured the Jews in Czechoslovakia in the 1700s gathered around this actual Torah, hearing these verses, speaking explicitly to them who were standing there at that time, as well as those who are not yet present. And then in the 1800s, different Jews, maybe Czechoslovakia, maybe somewhere else, again, hearing that connection to those not yet born, including the future members of the not yet existent Lincoln Park Jewish Center. Then in the 1900s, when Lincoln Park Jewish Center was so vibrant, When Harold would stand there as Gabbai, hearing the affirmation of his own personal relationship with God and the extension of the covenant to his children and his not yet born grandchildren. And during those years that this Torah was read at LPJC, we in this room were born, Congregation Kol Neshama was established, and today this same Torah is here with us in Englewood, New Jersey, for at Asher Yeshno Po Imanu Omed Hayom, all of us who are here today, and also at Asher Einenu Imanu Hayom, those who are not here today. And as I think about those who are not here, the Einenu Po Imanu Hayom, I do think with awe about those who aren't yet born, who will, also hear about this covenant from this very Torah. But I also think about those who embraced this Torah in the past, who obviously also Einenu Po Imanu Hayom are not here with us today. This would include the communities, the people in Czechoslovakia, all the way through to those of Lincoln Park Jewish Center, including Harold and Lita. And just as Harold and Lita loved the Lincoln Park Jewish Center, I know that LPJC really loved Harold and Lita. Just really happy to have Joe and Jack and Roz here, who are one of many who I know, love them dearly. Words cannot express our appreciation to you who are standing here among us, and those from LPJC who Einenu Po Hayom, those who are not here today. We're grateful to all of you. And while we express our gratitude as a community and as individuals, for the opportunity and the privilege of continuing with the continuity of this Torah, we also can't help but, with all our hearts, just really express our gratitude as a community, as individuals, for our connection to our own history, which it represents, and as well as to our future. So, thank you guys very much for being here.
Thank you.